Hi, good evening, everyone. This is Lloyd speaking. So let me grab the screens. There it is. Yeah. So today I'm going to actually present on a topic round number. I'm not really sure whether I've presented this before. Yeah, at least it's not on my list. Yeah. So I'm going to present to you how actually I use round number in my everyday trading. Actually, in a lot of my analysis, you can see that I actually favor a lot on round number rather than just a horizontal level from nowhere. Yeah. So again, that boils down to me personally as a trader. I like something that's much more objective. Yeah, that's all it is. Now, just going to present to you some. I mean, it can be easily searched about round numbers. Is that look, round numbers in another way is also known as psychological numbers. It's just one of the easiest method there to use horizontal level for trading. That's about it. But there are studies being done for round numbers, known as psychological numbers, known as key levels, whichever way you want to term it. To me, I just say that's round number. Yeah. So, again, Forex is ultimately Forex is a game. Yeah, I will say that as a game that you are trading against your own self. Yeah, the market does not know you. Nobody in this world really care about what you put in the market. Yeah, I mean, it's not a figure that's huge enough to move the market. So it is insignificant, per se, individual traders like us. Yeah. Now, but altogether, all of us as individual traders, we are still humans ultimately, and there are some things that attract us altogether. Yeah, and one of the things is just round numbers. Uh, the easy thing to point out is that it's simply because we value simplicity. And from a trading perspective, whole numbers are just easier to place your trade on, be it your stop loss, be it your entry, or when you do your analysis. Yeah. So there are order flows around whole numbers, and you should be aware of it. There are studies being done about it. You can actually Google all this easily online. You can search information for it. Yeah. So sometimes you heard us saying that double zero, triple zero numbers, all these are also round numbers. And especially when you read news, financial news especially, you hear those punters repeatedly saying that there's a huge support at this level, wherever that level is. But I'll bet my money, usually that particular level they are saying, where be it there's huge support or resistance, it is still a whole number. Yeah. So again, back to the point, we favor simplicity as traders, as humans, especially me as a systematic trader. I favor simplicity a lot, something that's repeatable. I don't like complex things. By virtue, complex things are just that much harder to process and harder to say it out. Yeah. So again, this is from Trade Society. You can see that when you look at order flow, there are clusters of orders in this kind of whole number. And if you use brokers like IG, Oenda, IB, you can actually, because they are some of the biggest brokers around the world, that means they consolidate orders. Yeah, so they can actually, in a way, publish their level 2. Yeah. So the order flow in this, it is almost always a given. You see that there are a huge orders across this kind of four numbers, be it Forex, be it stocks, be it commodities or indices. Yeah, you can actually do a simple search and validate all this. Yeah. And psychologically speaking, outside of trading, be it Forex, algo traders or programmers, we program our buyers into the box, into the algo to trade for us. And again, our buyers are reflected in the instructions. Yeah. So even this is my personal belief. I'm unable to validate this particular statement, but it's just my personal belief that I wish to share is that even when I do my own bot to help me trade, simplicity, round numbers, all this is all programmed in. Yeah, so it's not that the bots are just simply executing random instructions. They are still built by influenced by the bias of the bias by whoever is programming them. Yeah, and that's mostly how we work. So back to the chart. Where's my chart? Wait, that's a question, it seems. Oh my, wow. Strange. It's a file. Later I'll search for it again. Yeah. Because it's the usual file. Maybe I'll send it on my end. Right. So I'll just give you a simple. I'll just use Euro USD, Pound Yen. Simply Euro USD is the main instrument that most of us trade on. Pound Yen is the most volatile instrument. WTI, I will just use it as a representative of the commodities. So the way I approach round numbers is that orders are clustered around there. What kind of orders? Sell stop, buy stop, stop loss, whichever they are. Just think of it as orders. Okay, and whether they are big or small orders, we do not know. As traders, we do not know. So the only sensible way for me to approach round numbers is that if I'm trading a particular price action, then I have to trade a significant price action that represents a shift of sentiment. By and large, that usually means engulfing bars. Sometimes it may not be engulfing bar, and I think some traders call it a dominant setup. That means a bar that is significantly just dominates the past few price actions because it represents a shift of sentiments. Yeah. So that's also how I trade it. Yeah. So on my chart, I've already plotted 1.15, 1.1, and of course all the other round numbers that's on the screen, 1.25, 1.3 onwards. I'll be sending you all the indicators later on. Yeah. So like I mentioned, when price comes to these round numbers, look for a significant shift of sentiment. That means don't just blindly trade price actions. Trade the price actions that represents a shift in sentiment. Yeah, and by and large, usually it means engulfing bar. Yeah, I'm quite reluctant to use engulfing bar, but I can't find any other price action that represents it. Again, I repeat, another way to look at it is dominant setup. So what I meant by dominant setup is price action that actually engulfs not just the previous price actions, but probably the past 2, 3, 4 price actions. Yeah, a price action that lets you see there's a shift in sentiment. Most of the time, it does work out quite well. All right, so on my chart, you can see this is what I meant by dominant setup. You can see that this is a huge S bar. Yeah, it actually engulfs the previous. Not that it will work 100% of the time. This time now, you do get triggered. By the way, I'll just use in the context of pending orders. Do get triggered, stop out. Then you can see again at there will be shifters. Yeah. So this is also a dominant setup. So this is to many, this will be a bearish engulfing bar. You can see that it's actually bigger than the past 2 price actions. Price does travel a bit, but then it reverses again. Yeah, so these are just 2 examples whereby you can see it fulfills my criteria for trading, but we just got stopped out. So be it. Yeah. And then you can see that price actually starts to wobble a bit. Comes to here, there isn't actually any dominant setup per se. This is a usual test bar. It is also an engulfing bar, and that is bigger than the past immediate price action. But in essence, you can see that the size of it is actually quite similar to these 2. Yeah, so this is not a dominant setup. Over here, as we shift more forward, there we can see an engulfing bar, but only engulfs the previous. Other than that, it's quite similar in size to the previous ones. Yeah, so this does not represent dominant setup. And here, will be our dominant setup. All right, it just completely engulfs the past 4 price actions. Yeah. So this one actually can easily get you, I think, about 1:1, and then price begins to reverse. So bit small winner. Again, dominant setup. You can see from here. Yeah, price comes and touch the round number, and then this represents a shift in sentiment. Luckily for us, we did actually get triggered. If it's a pending order, price just reverses. Now this time right, reverse, you can see the bars are quite mostly equal in size. Yeah, so this is very, very tough to trade. In any sense, any trade that's tough to trade, just let it go. Same here, we don't have any dominant setup. Price reversed, touched the round number, and you can see that this is a dominant setup. Right? It is bigger than the past 2, 3, 4, 5 price actions. We can trade it. I mean, a setup is a setup. It's just in this case, you definitely get to 1:1, but it doesn't really represent a good risk to reward. Today, I'm not talking about risk to reward. So you can see over here, same thing. Price comes to round number. We don't really have a dominant setup. We have one here, yeah, but price actually it already left the round number. So this quite easy to trade. Nothing over here for us. All this you can see that it barely touched, so we are not going to trade it. Over here, this bar it did touch, but the subsequent price action is more or less the same size, so it's also quite tough for us to jump in. Yeah, so be picky about your trade entries. Over here, price again broke 1.1. It took off, but it didn't really give us the dominant setup. So be it. Now this will be interesting. You can see that price action, as it approached 1.15, it gets smaller. Then this bar came up, so it got 120 pips. Yeah, it's bigger than the past price action, which is about 60, 70 pips. That's about it. It's almost 2 times the size. So this, and it broke the round number. So this is something we can definitely trade. Yeah. So this definitely gets you to 1:1, probably about 3:1. Price goes all the way. Anyway, one thing to note is that if you do take this kind of setup, just be sure to actually take your TP off at the next round number. Yeah. Because since price interact with round numbers, then it does stand to reason is that when price break a certain round number and goes to the next one, there's a 50-50 chance that you actually reverse, simply because again there's lots of orders around the area. Once you grab your TP1, the extra bonus will be where price move to the next level. That's about it. Over here, again, we don't have a dominant setup. This is what you learn as a test bar. It's about 108, but in essence, it's about the same. It's even smaller than it's bigger than the immediate one, but it's smaller than the second one. Yeah, so let's not trade that. Price did go down, so bit there. This is dominant setup I'm talking about. You can see that it's definitely bigger than the past 4 price actions. Price did hit, get to 1:1. Price comes down. There again, another dominant setup. But this is about 100 pips. It's definitely bigger than the past 4 price actions, past 5, 6, 7 price actions. Yeah. So you can see that whatever orders that's clustered around here, again, be it sell stop, buy stop, stop loss, it did get triggered, and then immediately the buying sentiment takes over. Yeah, so this is a shift in sentiment. Yeah. So a dominant setup, more often than not, is actually a engulfing bar, but deeper into that, it should engulf the past few price actions. Again, the keyword being that represent visually, and this time around the visual is price action. Some of you who don't trade price action, Renko or other stuff, point figure, the same key thing applies. Trade some things that represent a shift in sentiments. That's about it. Right, so that's Euro USD. Again, I'll use WTI. I think WTI has a very, very good run the past few months. So let's have a look at it. Yeah. So you can see that back in 2020, price actually dropped below $10. Huge break. Okay, so let's start from there onwards. You can see that every time it comes to a round number, I can't really blow that up. Yeah. So you can see that smallish bar, small. That this particular price, the moment it breaks, once it breaks, this is still a very small price action. All right. You can see that the preceding bar, that's straight away after it. This is about what, 100 pips? The rest is, it's not even 100 pips. 60, 53, 30. Yeah. So this represents a continuation. Again, a very good dominant setup that we can trade from a recent round number. Jump in, then you can see that price goes up to the next one. All right, so you can see very, very small price actions. You can see as you approach $20, price gets smaller and smaller. Strong rejections, okay, huge week. Again, this is about what, 90 pips long. Yeah, usually you can see that it's actually way bigger than the previous one. So you want to jump into this for a short trade, you can. Again, as per pending order, we won't get triggered anyway. Then you can see that straight after that, very small price action. Since we didn't get triggered, you can delete that order, small price action. Something tried to push the price down. Again, a dominant setup appears. So this is about 110 pips. Yeah, it's way bigger than the past 5 price action. So it represents a shift in sentiment. Trade that. Definitely can get to more what I want is to once. You can see that eventually price goes. Okay, like I mentioned, once you get 1 to 1, just relax. Let price go to the next level. Yeah. For some of you who are of a more aggressive nature, you want to manage it more, up to you. Like I'm not exactly presenting a strategy. Yeah. Then from here you can see that price small, near the round number $30 this time round. It gets bigger. You can see that, but it still didn't touch 30. All right, so there's really nothing much for us to do here. Finally, it touched 30, but it closes below. And price actually broke above. Now, over here, unfortunately, there's no dominant setup. Yeah, even this one, 140, is definitely bigger than previous one. It's bigger, should be the same. No, nearly the same size as the second one. So I can't count this as a dominant setup. Yeah. Price goes a bit, come down. Now, this is definitely a dominant setup. You can see this actually way past bigger. It's bigger than the past 5 price action. You can jump in. It did touch $30, and then price goes. Again, another dominant setup. This bar, you can see that price, when it comes to here, you should already take your profit. This test bar appear, which is only about what, 170. The bar before it, 270. So this, no matter what, is not a dominant setup. Don't forget about it. This is just a random price action that appears that exhausts stop losses or take profits. Let it be. Okay. But we are still interested because once price touches the 40 level, that means there may potentially be a shift in sentiments. Yeah, we are looking for a shift in sentiments. That's what we are looking for at round numbers. And then this bar appear. So let's see how big it is. You can see it from about 200 pips, definitely bigger than this. This one is about 160. So it's bigger than the past 3 price action. So you can actually jump in. All right, and then price goes. Again, you can see, finally, price touches $50. So we are looking for a shift in sentiments. It be a reversal or continuation. Now, price broke, small bar, big bar. So you can see that the engulfs at least the past 2-1 jump in. Yeah. So this is what I meant by trading the dominant setup, something that's obvious, not just 1 bar or 2 bar price actions. Yeah. From my past experience, price action alone does not. If you blindly trade just engulfing bar or test bar at round numbers, you'll feel quite badly. Yeah, but if you look at dominant setups, in essence, if you really want another indicator to complement it, you can look for ATR, average true range. Yeah, so dominant setups usually are bars that break above ATR. So you can just use ATR 10. Yeah. So if ATR is displaying 80 pips, a dominant setup should be above 80 pips because it should be bigger than the past few bars. Yeah, so that can be one definition of dominant setups. Right, I hope that explains. Let me see. Any questions? In the meantime, I got to. Seems that I should have passed my a link, but instead I passed her a file, which is my fault. I don't know why I passed her a file. That's weird of me. I'll pass you all the indicator now. Just give me 2 minutes. You can type your questions in there for time being. Yeah, we should put this. Right. So let me paste it in my Gmail drive so that you all can get it. There I go. Where's my round numbers? 1.01. There it is. There you go. Okay, it's uploading now. Right, Mike, I'll paste it in the Skype so you can actually copy the link from there. In the meantime, I'll paste it on YouTube myself. All right. Hi, John. Hi, Parish. Yeah. So that's what I have for round numbers. To me personally, I find that round numbers are just way easier to trade as a horizontal level. I mean, it can be traded purely by horizontal level. I don't really use it for confluence. Yeah, by itself, I think it's strong enough. Of course, I don't trade just any setups from a round number level. Again, I highly emphasize look for dominant bars setup. All right, I don't see any questions in there, so I just go through a last example that I have. Dominant setups. Again, you can see that this kind of bars is about 180 pips. This pound yen. Yeah, so it's bigger than the past 4 price actions. Go for it. Closes above 150. 150. Easily get your 1:1 before price reversed. Again, another dominant setup appears. 150. It is definitely bigger than the past 2. Definitely will hit your TP once, and then probably a bit more, depending on where you want to take your profits. And this is the daily chart, by the way. So that means 3 months later, because each vertical line on my chart represents a month. 3 months later, it did actually went down to 140. But wow, that would easily be a 5:1 trade. Now, I gotta admit that I don't have such patience. Yeah. So sometimes it's a bit of a, I mean, through back testing, you know that this particular method works, but just that since I'm as humane as any of you, sometimes 3 months to wait for 5:1 is quite miserable. Hence, I actually trade H4. Yeah. If you trade lower time frame, just simply look for cyclicity. It actually does give you, more stop losses, that I have to admit. But again, you do get your 3:1, 4:1, 5:1 much earlier. You don't have to wait for 3 months to get to those kind of profits. Again, you can see that price comes to 140. Touch, right? This bar didn't touch it, so I don't really care about it. Once it's touched, wait for a shift in sentiments, which is represented by a dominant setup, which in this case is this big S bar, right? Visually, I know that measure, you can tell that it's bigger than the past 4 or 5 bars, and then price did indeed. There she goes. Very nicely. Fortunately for this time around, price actually didn't hit 150. It stopped short of it. Whoever parked their orders here, so bids, and then price actually shifted. Reverses. Yeah. Again, I have another dominant setup. Luckily for this time around, it's a pending order. I won't get triggered. And then you can see that price, basically, after a high test bar, you can see that a dominant setup appears. Yeah, this one, for some reason, 2018 from here, this Brexit, another Brexit news? I'm not sure. But anyway, we easily get our TP ones. and then price comes back to 150 again, dominant setup, and then it takes off. Again, back to 140, dominant setup. Looks like a high test bar, easily bigger than the past 4 price action, and then price just goes down. Okay. Once price touch 130, look for another dominant setup. All right. So if you want a dominant setup that goes up, that means price has to bounce off. Otherwise, break, then you have to look for a bearish dominant setup. Now, the dominant setup, if it does occur, usually it should occur within the week. That means within a 4 to 5 days period. After that, you can just, if it's too far from the round number, forget about it. Don't actually attempt to jump in. That's from my own observations. And once price cluster at those round number for more than a few days, also don't bother trading it. So you can see that there's actually nothing here for us. Price comes and then it goes off. This is actually not a valid setup. Sorry, yeah, it didn't touch 130. Yeah, so this is what I meant by you can see that price clustering. If more than about 4 or 5 days, don't bother looking at it. You can easily draw a box. Yeah. So look for a setup which actually breaks. And again, that setup must fulfill the dominant setup criteria. A price action, a price movement that is bigger than the past 3, 4 bars, 5 bars. All right. So you can see that this one broke. This is easily, let me see, 160 pips. I think the biggest bar is this, 120 pips. Yeah, so it's definitely bigger than past 4 price actions. It broke. Can trade it. Should easily get you 3:1, at least 1:1, whichever that is. Yeah. And you can see it keeps on repeating itself over and over again. Key thing is that, look, I love round numbers, but don't just take any kind of price action at those round numbers. All right, so that's my presentation for today. Round numbers, look for dominant setups. Again, define dominant setup as outstanding, really obvious price movement that represents a shift in sentiment. It will serve you better in the long run. Okay, don't go for those cheap, quick trades. You'll be stopped quite easily. Stop out quite easily. Right, John. Which time frame? Look, you can trade round numbers in any time frame. Today, I just presented in daily time frame. You can definitely trade it as H4. All right, no issue with that. Yeah, I got 2 minutes left. I forgot to. Okay, so my settings for the round numbers, you can see 140, 130. I'm just using 1,000 pips. This is Power Yen, by the way. 1,000 pips difference in between the spacing. Against Euro USD, what's the spacing that I used? This difference. For daily chart, this is about 5,000. Oh, sorry, 500 pips. Yeah. So of course, if you want to trade round numbers or H4, you can use closer one. You can actually use about 250 pips. Yeah. For H1, you can use up to 200 pips, which is 200 pips, 250, all this. It will still be, if you look at the decimal place altogether, it will still be a double-digit round number, or a double zero. All right, so just read out some articles about it if you want know more. Yeah, but other than that, the way to use it, you can purely backtest using the method I just presented to you. You see if it actually complements your own trading strategy. All right, so that's all for me. All right, thank you everyone, and I will see you 2 weeks later after Chinese New Year. Goodbye, and have a good celebration.